For the longest time, board game publishers seemed to be competing over who could produce the biggest, most monster-sized game in existence. Most of these took up a ton of room on my shelves, and some wouldn't even fit on my table. Recently, though, it seems like there has been a shift towards robust, full-size game experiences in smaller packages, which I am all for. They've always been around, but it seems like they are now really getting their day in the sun. So today we are talking about big, chunky, full-course meal board game experiences packed into boxes small enough to fit into your glove compartment, or your purse, or if you're like me, the board game emergency kit you keep in your car. What, like you don't have one? Hey Brew Crew, welcome back to the channel. And welcome back to another episode of People's Choice, where I take your recommendations on a weekly topic and highlight some of the amazing games that the community loves. Before we dive into this week's topic, I wanted to let everyone know that I've decided to switch things up a bit with this series and make it a bi-weekly series. I know that a one-week turnaround is pretty short for a lot of us, and I'd love to give more folks the opportunity to submit videos or post comments if they'd like to join in the conversation. So we're going to try this for a while, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, this week's question was, what game gives you a big game experience in a small box? This was a really fun one because small box games are having a bit of a renaissance at the moment. Designers keep figuring out how to cram bigger and bigger feelings into smaller and smaller game packages. So I've got a few video submissions, a handful of comments, and as always, I'll be sharing my pick for this theme as well. So let's jump in.
Hey, this is Jen from Beer City Board Games, and my pick for a big game experience in a small box is Beer and Bread. It's not a super small box, but it's smaller than most of the games that we own and play, so I'm counting it as a small box. This is a 2-player strategic game, only takes about 30 to 45 minutes, but it still feels like you have a lot of depth with the decisions that you need to make throughout the game. Each player takes on the role of a village that proudly upholds their tradition of baking bread and brewing beer. The rounds alternate between a fruitful year where you're drafting cards into your hand and dry years where you have a fixed hand to work from. The cards are also multi-use, which I know a lot of people like, including myself. So you can use them to produce goods, harvest resources, or to receive some kind of upgrade, either ongoing or at game end. You're trying to manage your resources throughout the game, which usually are pretty tight, and you're also trying to build some type of engine that can help you make the best beer and bread that you can. At the end of the game, you're scoring your totals for bread production and beer production, but your final score is the lower of the two. So throughout the game, you have to make sure you're balancing the production of both of those products, otherwise you'll be stuck with a lower score. So it's super important that the players understand that going into the game, so they're keeping an eye on their balance. I usually don't love games that you have to score the lowest of something because I have a hard time balancing everything, but with just having 2 things to balance, it's not as bad, and I really do enjoy this game, and it feels like it's a lot of game in a smaller box. Thanks, everyone.
Our first comment comes from Natalie, who chose Sprawlopolis. This is a cooperative city-building puzzle where the scoring changes every single game based on 3 randomly chosen goal cards. And those goal cards double as part of your deck. The magic of Sprawlopolis is that it gives you the same mental crunch as something like Tiny Towns, but in a wallet-sized package. Really, there are a ton of button-shy games that would really fit this topic well. Our next comment comes from Julio, who picked Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. And honestly, this is an interesting pick. I could see Gloomhaven Buttons and Bugs being considered a small game. But when you think about it, Jaws of the Lion is a much smaller box than the original. And it also shrinks the setup time and table presence without sacrificing any gameplay. So I think this is an interesting pick, and I'll be curious to see what the comments have to say about this choice.
G'day Clay and the Brew Crew, it's Stuart down in Melbourne, Australia again. For this week's topic of a big game experience in a small box, I'm choosing a game that we picked up at PAX Australia last month that we demoed, and it was a game I didn't think my wife would enjoy, but she's absolutely loved it, and we've played it a lot of times. And that's Ruins by All Play and designer John D. Clare. This is a card crafting, card shedding game where you're trying to play multiple cards, if possible, of the same value to get them out of your hand to actually win a round. Right off the back, when you open the box, you get these lovely sleeves for all your cards. You get day and night cards with the day having a specific value, but then once per round you can actually swap one of your cards to the night side, which makes them more powerful. You can also play fire tokens during your turn, and what they allow you to do is there's a market full of all these upgrade cards which might increase the value of your card. It might make it a wild card, it might add an extra card, so making it 2 cards of the same value. And then you basically put those in your sleeves, and the game basically runs until somebody gets into the 9-10 position on the score track. You haven't won the game, but you've put yourself in a winning position, and you have to go out in the next round to win the game. Otherwise, if you get to the end of the 4th round and you're all on the a few of you on the 9-10 position, you have to play a final round to see who wins. They're just a very thinky game in such a small box. We've really enjoyed it, and we'll be taking it away on our holiday in a few weeks' time. That's all from me. See you on the next one.
We also had a comment suggesting Fox in the Forest. It's a lovely small box trick-taking game for 2 players that somehow manages to feel like full-scale competitive card play, despite basically just being a deck of cards. What adds to the bigger game depth is the special powers on the odd number cards, which create these really dynamic swings. Plus, you're trying to watch how many tricks you take. Taking too many could cost you for being too greedy.
Hey, fellow gamers. Carl here. Excited to talk to you this week about big games and small boxes. The game I'd like to highlight this week is Sail from All Play. Talk about a small box. Gotta love this size box from All Play, but there's a lot of game packed in here. Sail's a 2-player only trick-taking game with an introductory scenario that's pretty easy, but then 5 scenarios that get pretty hard pretty quick. Some of them we've tried multiple times and still haven't gotten through. But there's some cool variability in player powers and just some really neat things going on in this game. Really like it. The other cool thing about it is there's a mini expansion you can add that adds 6 more scenarios, more characters, and a bunch of unique things to add to your game. And extra cool, all that expansion content still fits in this small box. So talk about a big game in a small box. That's Sail. Have a great one, guys.
And finally, someone chimed in with Scout. Oink Games are masters of the big game and small box idea. Scout has ladder climbing mechanisms, hand management, and surprisingly deep tactical timing. And because your hand can't be rearranged, you're constantly trying to decide whether you want to perform Scout or just cry because someone dropped a ridiculous 5-card straight. And now it's time for my pick for this week's theme, which is Archaeology: The New Expedition by Phil Walker Harding and published by Z-Man Games. Archaeology is one of those games that I always forget how much I enjoy until I play it again, and then I think, oh, that's right, this is great. This is a set collection game where you are digging for relics, trading treasure at the marketplace, and trying to piece together valuable sets before sandstorms blow your whole plan away. It feels surprisingly deep for what's in the box. Different monuments and treasure distributions keep the replayability high, and it gives you the excitement of discovering something rare, the tension of a sandstorm possibly wiping you out, and the joy of turning in a giant trove of pottery shards like you are Indiana Jones at a flea market.
Belongs in a museum.
Thank you so much to everyone who submitted videos and comments this week. You all brought excellent recommendations. Small box games will forever be the heroes of road trips, backpacks, lunch breaks, conventions, and avoiding awkward small talk at family gatherings. Something to keep in mind with the holidays now in full swing. For the next People's Choice video, the question is, what game do you love that you never win? We all have them. The games where we keep thinking that this time will be different, and it never is. To be honest, this is most games that I love, so I might be struggling to narrow this one down, but please send in your picks. As always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like, subscribe, hype the video, and drop a comment with your answers for next week's topic. Or send a quick video to the Google Drive link down below by Thursday, December 18th, and I'll make sure to get everyone on the next episode. But that's it for this week's People's Choice, and until next time, let's get another round for the table.